Welcome to the Why podcast brought to you by United Way of the Big Bend. I'm Bernice Cox, the CEO of United Way. Joining us today is Doug Dunlap, the CEO of Syntec. He went to his father, who was an engineer. His grandfather had been an engineer. And he asked his dad, "Should I consider being an engineer?" The answer that his father gave him shaped his future in a way that might surprise you. Please listen to what Doug has to share. Well, we are so thrilled to be joined today by the CEO of Syntec, Doug Dunlap. Doug, welcome. We're so
Well,
happy
thank
that
you.
you're joining us today.
It's great to be here this morning.
You know, we've had a chance to talk a little bit before this taping today, and I really want to get to a lot of the things that you've talked about. But what I'd like to go to first is about the start of Syntec. It was your baby, and I want to hear about how that got started with Syntec.
Well, it started really, I guess we formed the corporation to purchase it in 1989, and it was actually owned by a British defense conglomerate, okay, and we only had about 30 employees. And so we purchased the company from Howden Defense Aerodynamics Company, and they were headquartered in London, England. I was actually the CEO, and the chairman, who resided in London, England, always complained about how hard it was to get to Tallahassee. And so I finally said to him one day, "Well, you know, if you're tired of traveling here, why don't you sell it to me?" And he did. And so then we embarked on our journey.
And let's talk about that journey because and talk about basically what Syntec, what you do. I know Syntec Fuel Master. Share with us the product that you have and where you are because you're international. I'd love to hear about that reach and about what you do at Syntec.
Okay, we were owned by Howden Aerodynamics because we built ammunition resupply systems for the United States Air Force and the U.S. Army. So that was primarily our product, but we were able to develop a product which automated fueling, brought fueling automation to the U.S. Air Force worldwide. And that provided a real springboard for us to get into the commercial market to sell this. And so that has just expanded exponentially. Till today, we actually have a bunch of businesses or organizations that we supply fueling automation to here in Leon County, including the county and the city and Florida State and Florida A&M and a lot of other clients. But that's a very small part of our business. We have managed to accumulate over 7,000 customers worldwide.
Ooh.
And yeah, that's and we
That's
talk
quite impressive.
we talk to many of them. We have a huge center staff of about 35 people that deal with customer problems all the way around the world. So that's kind of that's what we do, and that's our primary business.
You know, as the CEO of the business, especially as you're looking at the business, you know, located in Tallahassee, and we're going to talk a little bit about why located in Tallahassee and the economic impact that you have in Tallahassee with your employee base. But before we get to that, as I look at the work that you've done and the leadership that you've done, Doug, there had to have been some hard decisions made throughout in order to expand and grow and to expand to the internationally. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Well, of course, when you purchase an organization such as this, you are suddenly under a mountain of debt, and so we had a tremendous amount of debt and very little equity, and we had a 5-year payout, and it was somewhere in the range of about $3.5 million, and so digging away at that debt over time, it was the first 5 years anyway was certainly just to I won't say survive, but certainly meet our obligations.
Right.
And so that was a little bit difficult. But over time, you know, you go for years and years, and we've owned it for 30 something years, and you look up one day and all of a sudden you don't have any debt and you got a lot of cash, and you know, so we're very thankful for that.
Well, and I think that says a lot. I mean, one of the things that I've learned is there was something that your father said that you wanted to be an engineer, and I'm not going to give away your thing that your father said, but that led you into business versus being an engineer. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you know, my father was a professional engineer and a registered professional engineer, and so was his father. And, you know, I asked my dad, you know, what should I go into engineering? And he said, well, you can go into engineering. And he said, if you do, you'll be well paid, but you'll probably work for somebody all your life. If you go to business school, you can own the company. And so it is pretty ironic, I think, that I went to business school at Florida State, majored in accounting, passed the CPA exam, and here I own a company that has 70 engineers. So he was right.
Isn't it great when we can say our parents are right? And I love it. And I want to hear that. I've heard it a couple times from my children. And I love when they say that. You were right about that, Mom.
I know, and that's the importance of parenting.
Uh-huh.
You know, you provide that guidance to your kids. And, you know, I try to do that to mine.
So when you were talking about majoring in accounting, that you learned about finances early on
Yes.
through that work at Florida State University, and of course after that. Why is that a critical piece of being a CEO and an entrepreneur? Share with us why that's so important.
I think that it all begins, any business or any enterprise, and as you know, Bernice, because you run an enterprise yourself,
As a nonprofit.
it all begins with you understanding where you are financially, and I mean in detail, and where you're going to be tomorrow. Florida State in accounting taught me the right way to think about finances, to think about accounting, to think about you know, commerce. And so that's where we are. You know, I understand that about our company, and that allows me to make decisions on, let's say, hiring or research and development or all kinds of dynamics, marketing, that have to be made to be successful and on a continuing basis.
Well, and expanding, whenever you were talking about earlier, expanding to international, expanding to making sure that you're local, you're regional, you're national, you're international. All of those decisions had to be made from a financial lens, I would assume.
Absolutely.
So that, and understanding the finances is the only way that you could really make that grounded decision to move your company to where it is today, I would think.
Absolutely. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to understand those dynamics. And I'm a little bit shocked, just from my experience out in the world, at how many organizations really don't have that. I'm not saying they're terrible at it,
I got you.
but they are not as good as they could be. So, and I'm not saying we're the best either.
No,
so.
no, I understand. You're very humble. I really understand that. I do want to, let's talk local. You know, you have a large employee base here locally as a private company. Share with us that economic impact, the number of employees you have, and a little bit about that impact that you and your company have here in Tallahassee and Leon County.
Well, the impact we have is very significant. We have 200 employees, but our average wage here in Tallahassee or in Leon County is twice the county average.
Wow.
So, and that's because we have a lot of professional people.
Right.
But I think the biggest, in fact, I know the largest economic impact is that our customers are all over the world. So what you have is all those funds really coming into Tallahassee and having an economic impact here in our employee base, which is 200.
That's great.
And so we have, and of course, there's it's called the economic multiplier effect.
It's
Okay.
pretty powerful to have a 200 employee base, and especially when you're talking about the salary range. And I'm going to ask maybe a really simple question, and I guess All questions are good. I hope you feel that way, because
I
I
do.
do. As you look at you talked about having the number of engineers. I think it was 70 that you mentioned, 70-ish engineers that you have. Tell me what your engineers are working on, if you could give me a little bit of glimpse into that.
Well, we we pretty much build what are called embedded systems, okay? And then everybody has seen an electronic board. You got a number of them in your automobile and in your home now.
Right.
Everything's controlled by a microprocessor, it seems. And so that's what we build. We build embedded systems, and so we have to design the hardware. We have to encode the firmware, okay, on that board. We have to teach that board and code that board to be operational and do its function. And then, because it is basically a small computer, that's what it is, okay, very powerful computer, and it has to be all weather because it goes outside on a
Okay.
fuel island.
You know, I've had an opportunity over the last few years to visit Syntec, and I will tell you, when I walk in the door, I can tell it feels like a family. And with that number of employees, I don't know how you make it feel like a family, but you've done that. Share with us why. How has that happened? Because there's an energy and a care for each other that I feel when I walk in the door, and I know that starts from the top. So what is that makes that family for that large of a number of employees?
Well, it's as we have talked about in the past. It's very simple. It's just treat people the way you want to be treated, and that includes customers, that includes visitors, that includes employees, and we believe in long-term relationships, okay? We want long-term relationships with the United Way. We want it with our customers. We want it with our employees. We want it with our vendors. And we found that that's the way to success. And it really works in life also, okay? I mean, in terms of marriages or partnerships or relationships with your kids. That's what you want.
Well, and I think when you're talking about, I really appreciate what you said, because it's obvious that there's care for your team and care for your family, your Syntec family. Just like I said, in the times that I visited there, it's so obvious to me. But it starts there. I mean, it starts with your family, but it also starts there, and that shows. You know, that way, that connection to your vendors, and when you care about the people that you work with on a daily basis, that all shows to your vendors. That shows to everybody else that you're working with, your clients, et cetera. I think it's a beautiful thing to see, and I applaud you and your team for that, and your leadership for that.
Well, thank you.
You have, you know, and I get to be there because of the connection that Syntec and under your leadership has with United Way. You've been a longtime supporter of United Way, and we're greatly appreciative of that. Why United Way for you and for Syntec?
Well, first of all, there's a need in the community for United Way to step in a lot of places where the need is not being met, okay? And we see that, and we're a successful organization. We're a very successful organization, and we certainly feel that it's our obligation to help the community, okay? So that's really, and that has been a commitment of ours from since 1989, and it kind of goes back to long-term relationships. We have a long-term relationship with the United Way, for 35 years, and I think we've raised about the 1.3 or 4 million dollars for United Way, and so that's our commitment, and it's become a culture now. I don't really have to. I don't have to emphasize it.
I think that's really wonderful. You know how much we appreciate that. As we look at our community, we are 54% of our neighbors either live in poverty or at the edge of poverty. We're talking about Tallahassee, Leon County. That's 1 in 2. And what we're finding, the larger part of that are working. They are maybe a single mother or a single father that's working a full-time job and a part-time job, still struggling to meet basic needs. So we impact them in health and mental health, and in housing and safety net and skills development. There's just an array of the way we impact them. It's challenging, and especially we have a lot of single mothers that are working really hard and still struggling to make ends meet. How do you Your contributions and what you and Syntec do go a long way to that impact. Do you feel like a personal connection at all to any of that in any way, shape, or form?
Well, yeah, I do. I mean, I think I understand the dynamics of single parenthood, even though I've never been a single parent. But I see it. I see it in our organization. I see it in the community, and I know it's very difficult. And I think the support the United Way provides in that is absolutely essential. And so we will definitely support that. And let me just say one other thing. I mean, there are probably, and there are, I'm sure, a lot of businesses in town that are just not able to support. But the ones that are able to support, such as Syntec, that I think puts the obligation on us a little, or puts the standard a little higher in terms of our response.
Well, we certainly appreciate that. Any hobbies that you'd like to share? Do you have? I know free time probably is a luxury, but are there any hobbies that you have that you'd like to share with us?
Well, you know, I go to the gym a lot for stress relief.
I
I tell
totally-
you, it's the greatest stress relief there is, and so
I agree.
yes, I
I'm all
mean,
in on that.
and you know, I do have a farm. I have a farm up in Grady County that my grandfather had, or at least, you know, I've grown the farm, you know, to about 500 acres. So I love to go up there, and it's a pine tree farm, so I have lots of pine trees. But you know, my kids go hunting up there. They
Okay.
hunt deer and turkey. So
So that's like, I mean, I grew up on a farm, so there's something about that connection to the earth that really is special. And
oh, it
it
is.
really is. To talk about reducing stress and being out in nature and being on the farm. I miss that. The farm that I grew up is in Tennessee, so I don't get to be there that often. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you
Certainly,
for
certainly.
your
We-
great leadership at Syntec. There's a lot that you share today that I'm sure many of our viewers did not know about Syntec and you, and we're grateful for you to share that with us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me.